Look, we live in a world where your personal information is currency. There are these data broker companies that are making millions off of your information without you ever consenting to it. Today, I'm going to walk you through DeleteMe, one of the most established data broker removal services on the market. I will share what it can and can't do for you to reclaim your privacy. By the end of this video, you'll know whether DeleteMe is worth the money, how it stacks up against competitors, and what to expect out of a data broker removal service like DeleteMe. Data brokers are companies that scrape for your information from public records, social media, purchases that you've done in the past. They build a profile that they can then repackage and sell to marketers, advertisers, really anyone who's willing to pay for that. In the United States, these companies actually operate legally. There's already a good chance that your information is on dozens, if not hundreds of these sites. DeleteMe's job is to go ahead, find those listings, and then politely asks these sites to take down that information. Founded in 2011, DeleteMe was the first service of its kind. That gives them over a decade of experience and figuring out which data brokers will comply and which ones require a little bit more pressure. Now, here's where things get a little ironic. In order to protect your private information, you must first submit that information into DeleteMe. During the setup, DeleteMe asks for things like your first name, your last name, your date of birth, your current address, your email address, plus some old addresses. And I have to admit, it did feel a little weird putting all this personal information into one site, but they really need that information in order for them to hunt that information so that they can submit takedown requests on your behalf. One thing that surprised me about DeleteMe is that they require you to upload a copy of a state-issued ID. Not a lot of other data broker removal services ask for this, but they go on and explain that they need that state-issued ID in order for some of those data broker sites to comply. The whole setup in all took me about 10 minutes, and they do ask you to sign and accept giving them limited power of attorney. It's permission to act on your behalf, although that scope is limited to only acting on your behalf for data broker removal purposes. After completing the initial setup, DeleteMe then prompts that in about a week, we'll have our first initial scan done. I was pleasantly surprised to say that I received mine within about 2 days. And when I opened it, well, it was a wake-up call. DeleteMe found personal information on 30 data broker sites. Things like my name, my address, my email address, just information that did not belong on these sites. The report clearly laid out what information DeleteMe found, where it was found, and what DeleteMe did about it. At the end, it also listed how much time it would have taken me to manually submit all these takedown requests. I mean, all in all, it wasn't a short list. Now, with the removal process, there are some things we need to clear up with DeleteMe. They do state that they scan and remove data from 750 data brokers, but depending on your plan, they only auto-submit takedown requests to about 60 to 125 of those sites. For the rest of the sites where your information is found, you will have to manually submit custom takedown requests. So no, it's not a set it and forget it situation. You are going to have to manually do some work on certain data broker requests that you want your information removed from. That said, they do cover some big hitters, so you are getting coverage where it matters most. In terms of timeline, things with data brokers are all over the place. Some can take days, some can take weeks. What DeleteMe does is make sure that they comply, and if they don't, they make sure to escalate things. Now, let's talk about some features that stood out to me, like the custom takedown request tool. When you find listings that DeleteMe didn't automatically catch, you can put these sites in the queue for them to escalate and do something. There's also an in Google search feature that is right in the DeleteMe dashboard. So you can type your name right in the dashboard and it'll show you where your information pops up. What's important with this is if you see something that's concerning, you can flag it and then DeleteMe will look into it further. Very helpful, especially if you're trying to stay proactive. They also offer a service called email masking, which creates aliases of your email for you to submit in case you want to keep your personal email out of sketchy sites or when signing up with certain online forms or shopping carts. And finally, they send you a quarterly report card. So every 3 months, you get a form or a report of everything DeleteMe has done, what they've submitted and completed, and what still stands. Why is that important, you ask? Well, it's important because data brokers actually keep reharvesting your information so that they can put on either their own site or they form new sites that contain your information. So DeleteMe is just constantly working in the background for you. One thing that DeleteMe does better than most is real help. Either you're talking to a human, you're live chatting, or you're getting a real response from a human being via email. Trust me, I've tested it out. I've called and their support has nothing but experts behind them answering your every concern. For a service handling the most sensitive of information, real support goes a long way. In my first scan, DeleteMe worked super efficiently. It definitely removed some big hitters in the data broker space. After that, I would say that it caught a few stragglers and it definitely evened out by the third quarter report. After that, only a few were left and some new ones popped up once in a while. DeleteMe is a great fit for those of you that want expansive coverage and accuracy while also not minding being a little hands-on. But if you want something passive or if you're on a very tight budget, well, DeleteMe might not be the service for you. No service is perfect, and DeleteMe, well, it does have a little bit of some flaws. One of them being the fact that it does limit the number of sites that it'll automatically submit takedown requests to. For the rest, you'll just have to flag them manually. The dashboard could definitely be a little easier to navigate. The reports are a little bit clunky, I feel, as well. The other thing is they could use a little more transparency with what's manual versus what's automated before you sign up. And honestly, I feel like DeleteMe would be a whole lot more accessible if they did monthly payments. No monthly subscription is available, so while things might feel pricier upfront, when you actually break down what you're getting, it's pretty fair pricing. If you want to automate the data broker removal process and you start counting up the hours of what it would actually take to manually do it yourself, pricing for these services starts to make a lot more sense and the clouds start to clear, if you know what I mean. DeleteMe isn't magic, but it is effective. If you want to shrink your digital footprint while minimizing the amount of legwork you actually have to do yourself, DeleteMe is just untouchable when it comes to how long they've been doing it for and how effective they are. The ongoing monitoring, the human support that you get, and the deep data broker coverage really stacks up to getting a strong value, especially if you're willing to stay a little engaged. So if you're ready to check out DeleteMe, check out the description below for an exclusive discount code. This is Ro with Cybersleuth. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.